Okay, this is Josh T. Franco, interviewing Lonnie Holley at Grocery on Home in Atlanta, Georgia, on July 29th, 2020 for the Smithsonian Institution Archives of American Art Pandemic Oral History Project. Lonnie, thanks so much for joining and for talking to me for the archives. And we're just checking on American artists and basically starting with how have you been doing since March, since reality kind of shifted for us?
I'm in the midst of it, in a sense. What I mean by in the midst of it, I'm in the midst of the conditioning of, it's almost like the Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, what is this?
Just here, hold on. Sorry, it's hold on. All right, there you go.
Okay. It's almost like the Twilight Zone if we have to look at it as a human perspective of it. Because you got to remember, if we always say thumbs up for Mother Universe, so I'm looking at the whole Earth itself in the midst of the rest of the planets and whatever else have to happen in the universe, and our activities as humans, and how my music and my art has been more of a representative for that type of information. And then all of a sudden you get told, or you have to digest that there has something came into our way of living that can easily take your life. It scares you, and it makes you a little bit more thankful for each second of your life, or that builds into the minutes and the hours and whatever part of the life that you have. Especially with me having to be the thinker involved in all of this. I'm a type of artist that have to think about, like the piece downstairs there in the Smithsonian, yielding to the ancestor while controlling the hands of time.
Yep.
So in the process of yielding and being submissive to the educated facts about us as humans, but still having to be in the midst of the hands of time being controlled, not always by me, but by society itself. And especially now that we're dealing with it in the digital perspective of it, it's kind of scary.
Have you, either in music or sculpture, what kind of art have you made since the virus hit us?
Well, I'm constantly doing my computer art. I do images every day, or I take and make art on the computer. I paint. Matt got me paintbrush on computer. Also, I got some designs as far as graphics that I can do to the paintbrush. Once I get the paints laid out, I can then graphify it and cubify it or whatever else I want to shape form it, and then put it into one image, and then file it for Matt to take a look at it and move it to the next level of saying, this is what has been accomplished by Lonnie's brain during his lifetime. The main thing is, that's what my interest is now in the arts, is to say, this is what I've done since 1979, or since I got the news that I were an American artist by the Lords of London and being appreciative for that. Or I've moved on and on and on, but constantly drawing and growing and growing and growing, showing others that we have these abilities, but we can increase our imagery or understanding of materials by the amount that we want.
Yeah. So, you know, you make sculptures out of things you find, and I thought that might have limited you, but if you're using the computer, then it doesn't matter if you can leave the room. You can do it on computer, it sounds like.
I mean, but you got to think about my life as far as once I get back from my trips and my music, I'm always returning to the same, more like setting of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a street runner, or I'm not going all the time. I'm not having events at my home where I'm having a lot of guests or anything like that. For me, I've put myself into a type of situation where I'm mostly looking forward to doing something each day. I keep enough, or either when I'm going away, I'm collecting enough books, I'm collecting enough information, I'm taking enough pictures, I'm seeing enough things, not only to sing about, but also to art about. And with those things, especially when it comes down to the planet and how we as humans, not just because we are together, we don't see all of the the greatness that is occurring for our lives in the midst of our lifestyles.
Does this moment feel like any other moment you've lived through?
Talking to you now?
I like that question. I was asking it too about 2020, we're all sharing a feeling, which is largely fear, but other feelings too. Does it feel like something you've experienced before?
But right now, talking to you about it, yes, it do makes a difference, and it matters, because this virus is a scary situation, and it has caused a lot of things to occur. Even if I wasn't utilizing these things, it's a lot of things that is occurring to people that are utilizing or have utilized them to have to break habits.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand breaking our habits in order to be able to get ready for a new habit. Because and we was gonna have to do it anyway. We was gonna have to learn how to become more technical than going to school, or than being in a social group of doing things together. We was always leading up to having homework.
Yeah.
So from homework to working from home, I think you can understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Or from homework to now having a computer in front of you all, and having your school there. The computer, code to the mom, I call it code to the mom, computer technology management will be managing us from home. So, but again, it's got to be a measured thing. It's like a cup that you're measuring a certain amount in order to make a perfect cake.
Mm.
If the finances or economics is not equal out for everybody to get the same amount of funds to be available for power, for for all utilities, for
Mhm.
paying for the homes that they're living in, for to make sure that the groceries or whatever else, the foods or whatever else is there to meet their requirements, and all of these things, especially with prices now on the rise. And if we may not be socializing that much and social distancing even more, but people, when they do go out, they still want to look fine. They want to put on their best.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? They want to show themselves are dignified in a sense. 9 times out of 10, and I'm not just saying certain women, but mostly all the women have to have their makeups. They have to have their hair done, their nails done. They have to have pedicures for their foot and all of these other things.
Mhm.
They at this day and time, they just don't feel right. It's almost like no, I can't do this. I won't go. So it's almost like we have created an environment of people that is requiring certain things in their life that they just can't drop all of a sudden
Yeah.
and start downgrading that and still trying to get the best of what they can function out of their brain. I call it thought smithing. If
Mm.
I can't have, if my body is not at ease, I I can't do my best thinking if I'm constantly worried about something that doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that the virus doesn't make any sense, but for humans to have to worry about it or see their loved ones that is perishing about it, and their loved ones might have not even had HD TV or HD radio to warn them that this thing is is there.
Right.
And if the next stage of the virus is to say, watch out for it becoming airborne or animal, or it could affect animals, just think about it. I'm not trying to put it there, but this is something that seemed to me is passed on from one to the other. Are we ridding ourselves of the waste of it to the point that we could say it's all right to throw all the trash, to throw the gloves, to throw all the masks by the thousands, each day by the thousands
Mm.
into the waste? Are, are we putting them in these plastic bags, sending them off to a waste site that's a landfill? Are we incubating something that is going to come back out through whatever drainage that these things have and make even a worse virus? This is my thought about it.
I
This
had
is the
not,
way I
yeah.
think.
I hadn't thought about that. I wonder if you've thought about the level of noise has decreased because everyone's staying still now and humans aren't making as much sound. Have you thought about that in this time?
Well, in a sense, noise that we made one way or the other affected one thing or the other, because the noise that was being made, or especially the vibrations from the motorization that is going up and down the highways,
Right.
the factories and things that were in the process, the sound that everybody just don't pick up on normally, but these sounds was being pushed out into our environments and then echoed and rippled off of the water and rippled off of the leaves and different things, blowed in the wind and affected the way that the creatures was living and all these other things, are along with what has been happening in our burns, our
Mhm.
fires. Our creatures has been put on the run. Then all the creatures that has been left behind that was burnt up, and something else came along and ate, and then turned around and doo-doo. All of these things that was making these other effects that we are not measuring microscopically and saying this is a still an infect, an infect,
Mhm.
not infection, but infect,
Hmm.
affect. You got to remember, affect, effect,
Right.
being affected by. You understand what I'm saying? That's the point I'm trying to get you to now. Is that we are being affected by everything, whether we want to be or not want to be. So what you just asked me, do I feel that things are a little bit more calmer now that there is less happening, less partying, less noise from the big city, which we don't even see it going on, but all the noise going on in every place in the big city. But at some point, all this noise is almost being like a big old ball of a wave and wave and wave and wave and waves of sound. So if you look at my abstracts or the things that I do abstractly and say, I wonder what Lonnie Holley was thinking about when he did this piece of art.
I ask that all the time.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Is that all of these things that is going on, I may not be able to sit down and tell Matt Arnett or William Arnett, which William Arnett is not keeping a record of mostly the things that I'm saying now, or but Matt Arnett is. That's William Arnett's son. But there are artists beyond me that need humans to help them with their information about situations. That's the reason why I think it needs a lot more volunteering.
Mm.
I think that humans should be willing, if they're studying to become curators, if they're studying to become directors, if they're studying to handle art in any way, form, or fashion, they should be willing to volunteer some. I think that should be passed on down through the churches. That should be passed on down through some kind of community service and all these other kind of things to get humans closer to that togetherness where we can say, okay, we found out that you was involved in civil rights. We would like to know what it was like for you. What it was like after you came off that trail from Selma to Montgomery. How did you feel?
Mhm.
How were your feet? Ask some personal questions. It was some really, really harsh personal things that needed to be answered there. I mean, Congressman John Lewis just left Washington D.C. I think they took his body back out of the Capitol today, didn't they? Or
I think
yesterday.
I think so. Yeah.
But again, this man had such a wave in the ocean of activism until all that were behind him. That's the reason why I looked at the situation, and I knew that he wouldn't have wanted nobody to just be thinking about him alone. But what about all these other people? What about all these other human bodies? What about all the feet that carried them? What about all them that is now deceased, and their only memory about them is what somebody had took the time to ask the questions to get it into written documents.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I don't want to say it's hard, but it is factual that we look at all points of this where everybody, or we can allow all the spirits to be appreciated. And not just from those for whatever rights that the Negroes began to march and protest. There was the earlier protesters. But there was earlier protesting been going on ever since there were humans. For some way or another, even the cave people went to protesting. Ooh and ah. Yeah. Ooh and ah. They began to protest, you know?
Yeah.
So it's the way that you holler and shout and scream and say, well, we're not eating right. You could tell that to your friend. Or I don't feel right about that. Just by you saying, I don't feel right about that. That's another right. And I know that's a lot of rights to right.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're going to leave those rights wrong and nobody even care whether we even try to document what is just and right, not just right. Just and just is two different things. Justice, justifiable.
I understand, yep.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to try to do that now, and we need to do that quickly, by coming together with a greater togetherness, because we're trying to leave this planet, we're trying to colonize the moon enough for us to go further from the moon after we do 5 or 10 years of colonization on the moon, and I'll probably be dead and gone. But I've already looked forward to that because I've already asked for 50,000 years worth of preservation from the planet Earth to do whatever else that we need to do in a more taught or teachable manner, in a constructive manner, where we can do good with it and be proud of ourselves.
Yeah.
This is, and I'm still say we should still see ourselves as a front-running nation. We should keep ourselves there and say, if it's no more than the way that we are utilizing the data in the data banks, how much we are allowing to go from cloud to cloud, how much information we are having a constant research on to file it from A to Z, where it can be easier for us to contain it, read it, get an understanding of it, understand the data, where we can then, when the next generation get here, it's almost like passing the torch in any Olympics. We pass the torch, the next generation pick it up, it'll be a lot easier for them to then rectify it or electronically get it laid out.
Yeah.
I
think
I talked so much, I'm sorry.
Well, I just really hope you can visit us at the archive someday, because I think a lot of the batons and the spirits live here because we have those materials, and this is where you go to pass those.
You have them there. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. But what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? If it ever came to a point where people get so riled up and not see the information that has been preserved
Mm-hmm.
in the way that they need to see it as information,
Mm-hmm.
not as objects that's gonna make me angry. There's a lot of stuff that I've seen. I thought I should turn my head and not look at it because I grew up that way. But then after visiting the Smithsonian for those 2 weeks, I came up and visited because you all invited me up for 2 weeks. And I came up and I visited. I went back home and my mama thought I was gone stone crazy. I was just working on the sandstone during that time.
Mm.
But when I got back home in 1980, the exhibit from 81 to 82, and I got back home, man, I'm saying, wow, humans did this. And I didn't have nobody to talk to on my level. I didn't have nobody to try to express myself to. And all of that I had to keep within myself really until I met Matt Father.
Mm.
Later on in 1984, 86, that I could talk to somebody. Okay, I can walk the path and look at my art and then explain to him while I did this and why I cut 3 sides or 4 sides to my sculpture instead of having one front side and a back side. I never even hardly did a piece of art like that. My art was worked completely all the way around. But the piece downstairs are yielding to the ancestor while controlling the hands of time. That piece was made out of heavy duty foundry material for making molds of big, huge pieces of metal. That's what that was made out of.
Yeah.
And I think you all have another piece down that was made out of some just small sticks, and it was called Sticking Together. But just putting some sticks together, it almost looked like a Pinocchio piece.
Yeah.
That I put sticks together, but I ended up creating a human out of it.
Yeah. Oh, I hope this is just a first conversation. And for the last question for this one, though, I'm glad this is visual because I'm curious about your bracelet and your rings. Do you want to describe those quickly?
I held my hand
I
up.
love that. Yeah.
Well, when I'm holding something in this hand here with my rings, I don't get no calluses on my hand.
Uh-huh.
And when I'm cutting, I don't cut my wrist or something with a saw or something.
Very
But this
practical.
arm is more like having the grip and hold, and by me cutting all the time, sometimes I'm cutting a little bit faster, and I never cut this hand at all.
That's a great solution. All right, I'm going to stop recording. I'm not hanging up. I'm just going to stop recording. But thank you, Lonnie, for this.
Thumbs up for Mother Universe. Thank you also. Thanks to the Smithsonian, and may you all have me there again, because you all had my birthday there, and that was something else. It was just beautiful. Thank you. Thumbs up.